Right, let's get started. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our talk about sustainable fashion in 2025, progress, pitfalls, and personal power. So it's Fashion Revolution Week, and it's been 12 years since the Rana Plaza factory collapse in Bangladesh killed 1,138 people and injured a further 2,500 workers. It's been 12 years since we all said, never again. Never again will the textile industry be built on a culture where workers are forced to enter a building they know is unsafe because they are underpaid and don't have the power to say no. We may have changed some buildings since, but the culture of exploitation within persists, perhaps even more so now. In 2021, an estimated 50 million people were living in modern slavery, 12 million of which were children, and that's according to the Walk Free Foundation. And we know that this is almost certainly rife in the fashion industry because in 2023, a staggering 99% of brands, that's 99% of brands wouldn't share the percentage of workers in their supply chain that were paid a living wage according to the Global Fashion Transparency Index. So that means that only 1% of brands are confirming that they're paying a living wage to their workers. And yet, despite none of these stats being particularly new, and despite all of the talk about how toxic and harmful to the environment fast fashion is, global consumption is set to triple by 2050, according to research by Ellen MacArthur Foundation. So that means that collectively, we're buying 3 times more clothes. And that means while many of us are saying we care with our lips, our behavior shows that too many of us are not caring nearly enough. Now, naturally, that's not the case for all of us on the call today, especially not the panelists. So for the next 40 minutes or so, we're going to go on a bit of a journey, first focusing on materials, then the people making our clothes, and finally exploring the difference between slow fashion and fast fashion. So let's get started and introduce our panelists, each of whom has come armed with a fact about fashion that continues to shock or inspire them. Or in fact, is going to shock us, maybe, Laura. But first of all, we'll start with Aishwarya. Could you please introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and share your fact?
Sure. Firstly, thank you so much, Lizzie. And it's so nice to be on the panel with Silva and Lora. I'm Aishwarya. I'm a textile scientist by, I would say, education profession, now turned entrepreneur for my brand Jiwya. And my work in textiles has been always focused through chemistry, understanding how chemistry and science can bring a difference. Through the journey, I have learned many other facts and facets of the business to now build a brand, which has the most diversified impact. However, one shocking fact about textile industry, which actually brought me much closer to my journey in sustainability, is 25% of global chemicals are only consumed by fashion. Can you imagine? Like if there were 100 chemicals in the world, 25 go on your clothes. That's not healthy. And you can only imagine how many of those 25 would be safe because it's a well-known, I would say, thing in the research industry that just because something is not researched enough doesn't mean it is not harmful enough. It's just that it was not funded enough to be researched. So I always take this 25% with a pinch of salt and try to not let any of those chemicals in my brand.
Okay, brilliant. And that's good to know, and also good to know about your brand as well. Thank you. Laura, same question to you.
Lora Nikolaeva. I guess I would describe myself as an entrepreneur because that's pretty much what I've done all my life. For some strange reasons, it's always been in fashion, 20 years now. And I have owned and started a brand which is aiming to highlight the issues within the supply chain called Lora Gene. And it's been going for a while now, over 10 years actually. On the side, I actually manage a boutique agency that manufactures and helps brands to make clothes in a more ethical way. Long story short, one of the facts that still shocks me, and it's probably the reason why I keep on talking about this generally, is that across the world, there is nearly 80 million people that are making our clothes. Over 70% of them are women, and over 70% of them are living under the poverty line, and they're not paying living wages. I don't know anything more shocking than that. This is, by the way, a fact by the International Labor Organization, ILO. So I don't know how accurate it is, because like I usually say, there is a lot of gray areas and lots of gaps in the data that we can collect, but I would reckon it's pretty accurate. So that's overly shocking, I believe.
Yes, absolutely. I think we're going to hear lots of shocking stats today. But we're also going to dispel some myths as well. So, Silva, finally, over to you. Last but definitely not least, please could you introduce yourself and your one fact? Yeah. All right. While we're waiting for Silva to come back, we will start with. So we're going to split the talk today into 3 sections: materials, people, and then slow versus fast fashion, which will bring everything together. So Aishwarya, as a textile scientist, estimates suggest that we make between 80 billion and 150 billion new garments every single year. Tell us, is there such a thing as good materials and bad materials?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely good and bad materials. So, firstly, we have to understand what perspective you're looking at for a good or bad material. Are you looking at, is it good or bad for my skin? Is it good or bad for my environment? Is it good or bad as a material for its functionality? As fashion industry, we have always focused on functionality. Like, this is really good for sweat absorption. This is really good for dry fit. This is really good for, I don't know, smooth and soft drape. I feel the moment you put the other two perspectives, whether it is good for my skin and whether it is good for the planet, then you get a wholesome answer of whether it is a good material or a bad material. Because if I only look at functionality, like almost every material, even coming from fossil fuel sources, is good. But the moment I realize that it is also leaching microplastics that are potentially harmful for my body and the planet, because I have started to understand this. The more I say planet, people are not going to care about it. The moment I say it's for your body, it's get much more attention. Personally, I believe what goes out there comes back to us. So, uh, so yes, very, very brief way of saying it is generally, when grown with holistic practices, things coming from nature are fall in better material category, and not coming from nature come in non bad material category. But there are ifs and buts here. The biggest ifs and buts of the nature category is how it was made, involving the people and involving the practices. So once you have answers to those, that is a generally good bracket.
Okay, brilliant. So, Silva or Laura, do you want to jump in at this point or have anything to add, or we're good to? Great. So when I'm shopping and I'm looking for clothes and I'm looking at the label for the materials, what materials am I very broadly looking for, and which ones am I trying to avoid?
First thing first, if you could avoid blends, that's very, very important, because the moment you blend fibers, you take away the possibility of recycling it, whether it is natural or synthetic. You take away the possibility that, because segregation is the biggest challenge in the recycling industry right now, that you cannot segregate the fibers enough for them to be recycled. So I would say I would put, buy 100% of the fibers first. Then in my bracket comes natural fibers to start with. And then comes whether they are coated with certain finishes or not. So I would look at, okay, is this 100% fiber? Okay, great. Check mark 1. My check mark 2 is whether it is linen or cotton, or at times even viscose if I don't have other options. And then hemp and other fibers are just picking up, but they are good as well. And honestly, I personally would pick cotton, whether it is organic or not, over a polyester shirt. Let's say we're comparing a shirt. That is my preference on that. We can talk at length about the water consumption of cotton versus the non-biodegradability of polyester. Those are two two very different but should be put in the same bracket topics. So that's my second check mark. Okay, if this linen would go very good, and linen and hemp go very well for me, then comes organic cotton, then normal cotton, and then probably viscose if I really, really want that kind of a material. And then the last thing is coatings. Anything coated with water repellent, stain repellent, dry fit, or retards flame or something like that, I never buy those. Wrinkle resistant, I do not buy those because they are always, always coated with forever chemicals or derivative. PFAS is another name that is widely known, and they are known to travel through bodies without being detected, reaching to human bodies, and they pass on through our genes. That I have read multiple research papers, even greater organizations like Ellen MacArthur and even Science Direct has multiple publications telling us how they travel and what they cause. So my thing is not you pay that at all. Like I'm okay with like extra wrinkles.
Okay. Keep the extra wrinkles. And does it always have to say on the label whether it's used those coatings or not?
It never says coatings. It never says. You have to look at, for example, bed sheets. I think until 7 years ago, bed sheets were not commonly coated with wrinkle resistance. Now you go to even popular shops like Bed Bath and Beyond or something like that. When I was living in the US, I really wanted nice cotton sheets. I was like, somebody sent me Bed Bath and Beyond is good. I went, an entire aisle was full of wrinkle resistant, wrinkle resistant, wrinkle resistant. It's like, I know as a scientist what is wrinkle resistant.
Yeah.
How would somebody know what went into making?
I have a question, or maybe like an addition, but Aishwarya can say, unless the coating is natural, because for instance, like we used a cotton that's waxed with beeswax.
Yes.
And it's quite popular for us. And, it took us a while to get to something which is actually naturally coated. So it doesn't, cause that, because pretty much, I mean, I'm aware of what you're talking about, and it's actually as bad, the amount of chemistry that it's used to do a material water resistant or chemically resistant. And there has been some regulation in the past few years, especially when it comes to sportswear. But yeah, I believe there is this one very tiny bracket where it's like natural beeswax, which was actually the first method that we use as humans.
So happy to hear that.
It was the first thing though, and it was actually, as far as I'm aware, I might be wrong on the fact here, but as far as I'm aware, it's a British company that have developed the first highly technological beeswax. Yeah.
I think when it came out, I did hear they started with something like, you can just wrap things in it, even if you want to heat-proof them or something, and it worked really good. I did follow through that. They have expanded to the clothing part of it, but I'm really happy to hear that. Obviously, when I had to soy and beeswax are some things that are really getting into it. Even citronella oils and oils from linalool and all those things are good, but that's still being researched.
Okay. So as a consumer who isn't in the industry, I need to kind of avoid wrinkle-free, etc. coatings unless and Laura, I imagine that you will say, will you somewhere that it's coated with beeswax so that I'll know the difference because that's something that you're proud of, or
It's not wrinkle free though. It actually
Okay,
wrinkles
yeah.
quite a lot. It's just water repellency, so
Okay.
that can make natural fiber
Okay, water repellent.
not going to work, simply because that's how fibers react with the environment, which is what has explained to you. I mean, cotton is hydrophilic. It loves water. That's basically
Right.
what. So I mean, probably virgin wool is the only one that I can think of which is less wrinkly, generally speaking. But there is nothing. We're talking about water repellency, which is a
Okay.
completely different story. And
I still have the question Lizzie had. That do you mention on your label somewhere? Oh yeah, perfect.
yeah,
Yeah,
we do.
wonderful.
But you know what? As someone that's kind of built the brand based on a very honest conversation with the consumer and stuff, we kind of try and put everything out there. The thing is, you're not legally obliged to do that. You're not legally obliged to say water repellent, buy a natural beeswax on label. We say it because I think it's helpful. It's good for people to know and all these things. We actually talk about it, but I feel like it's a very dodgy area to be, circling around.
Yeah, that's another thing, Lizzie. Very small point. There is no regulation.
There's no really.
List. Like you're not even required to list the fiber or details or all those things. You're not required to. It only started with smaller brands who were trying to make a difference, that they started noting that this is how I'm different than you, so I'll note it on my tag.
Yeah.
And that's how even the greenwashers started taking it up as well.
Wow. Yeah. Scream. Okay. So in terms of heading to just quick answers for a moment so that we can move on to people. What about bamboo? Can we use bamboo?
Okay.
Does any hands for yes? No?
Mixed answer from me.
I can answer. I mean, we use bamboo once or twice. What I find personally as someone working with textiles, it's a very unstable fiber. So I'm aware of the malicious practices and a lot of the things behind the process. But from purely practical perspective, if a consumer asks me why you guys don't work with bamboo, is because it's a very unstable fiber. So we've tried it on, like for instance, you can't. We don't do sportswear. We do very much like tailoring and women's wears, things you can wear. So you can't really make pants out of it because it's a very short fiber, so it breaks easily. So you're kind of working with a material which can give you troubles, and generally we avoid that. So purely practically, I would say no to bamboo because of that.
Yeah. My reason of not using bamboo is most of the times when people claim that it is hypoallergenic or antimicrobial. So bamboo as a material it has an ingredient called bamboo coon, which is antimicrobial, yes. But the moment you break it down into fiber mechanically, 50% of that is gone. The moment you pulp it, if you put it in like how viscose is made, like trees are cut and put into a chemical that dissolved and it is made into a fiber, and then comes out cellulose, which is like cotton is also cellulose, but this is synthetic or like semi man-made, something like that. So if you're using that process for bamboo, 100% of that antimicrobial property is gone because it's not there. So my problem with bamboo is whoever is using that is claiming antimicrobial. It started with socks, that these are antimicrobial made bamboo socks, or pillows. It's like, no, it's not. It's impossible. The moment you put it, it cannot happen. That was first thing one of my professors taught me, that you will hear this so often, but this is not true. The only way you can have even a little bit of that property in bamboo is if you mechanically make bamboo. And to Laura's point, if you're mechanically making it, it needs a blend. It cannot stand by itself. You'll have to add cotton or linen, something in it to make the fiber withstand. The soft bamboo that you feel is all chemically processed, so I'm not in favor of that. That being said, I am researching on mechanically made bamboo and how blends can still be as soft as possible, but I'm not there yet.
Okay, we will look into that. But just on the subject of, Laura, you said you don't do active wear really. So like we're heading into summer, for example. Recycled plastic swimwear is everywhere at the moment. Is it good? Is it bad? Or what alternative would you look for if you're looking for sustainable swimwear?
Oh, this is Aishwarya's section. I'm now interfering.
If it is recycled from a polyester t-shirt to a swimwear, I'll probably consider it. But if it's recycled from a PET bottle to a swimwear, I won't go for it. Because so what if you recycle 5 types and you're taking that away? If it's like a t-shirt made into or textile waste of polyester made into swimwear, I would consider that.
They typically market it as ocean waste made into swimwear.
Of course.
Okay, so what are we looking for instead? Like what kind of material is good for swimwear?
So the thing is, nylon is a little better than polyester because the biodegradability of nylon is about 30, 40, 50 years. It can reach that period, not like polyester, which takes much, much longer. It's not a saint either, but right now that's the option we have. I personally try to reduce the percentage of spandex in that nylon because nylon itself is also decently decently elastic, not as elastic as spandex, of course. So if it's like 2% spandex and 98% nylon, I'd probably consider that, which is what I have right now. And I'm trying not to buy a new one. But then most of the swim places also have rules to not go in natural fibers. So I keep reading about so many researches happening about polyesters that can break down, nylons that can break down. I honestly don't have enough data to give answer on that. So this is where I stand so far.
Okay. Thank you. Wait.
Probably one very tiny thing which a lot of people get confused on. I don't think, and obviously Aishwarya can disagree with me or tell her opinion, but polyester is not all bad. Like there is not, it was invented to echo silk, really, pretty much. A cheap alternative version for convenience and stability. And a lot of the times, nylons and polyesters are used in blends to bond materials and fibers like bamboo, which are not as stable. Let's put it that way. So what I'm really trying to say that a lot of the conversations in sustainability when it comes to materials is all black and white, very much like at the end of, and I believe that a lot of us that, and I'm not a scientist obviously, but again, a lot of the people that work in this industry are trying to get that conversation back where it should be. Nothing is black and white. It's all very gray area. We have it. It's here. It's not all bad. The problem with polyester is the actual quantity because it's pretty much what we use in the world right now. So there is nothing that it's not. I don't think on a personal level as well as a professional, I don't think having something in polyester is such a big deal, like for instance, we can't pleat anymore by hand. It's not possible. The technology asks for an artificial material like polyester who can handle the temperature that we use on the plates, right? So for instance, it's not, it's not the end of the world that we have some polyester. The problem is we have 80% of our garments are now made from polyester. So we are essentially, I mean, if you close your eyes and think about it, we are drowning in polyester, in plastics. So this is the problem we are facing. It's not about whether we have polyester or not. It's not about avoiding it at all costs. In some instances, it's actually helpful, convenient. Maybe we would all love to live in a world where we don't have it, but we don't. So the reality is we need to lower the consumption rather than think about how to completely avoid it. I would
Yeah. So it's the mindset in terms of materials and in terms of people of exploitation. Again, always we have that's the problem with fashion. Silva, welcome back. I don't know how much of the conversation you've managed to keep up with.
I'm like, I don't know what's going on with my technical side, but yes, I am.
Yeah.
And I have been hearing bits of the conversation, but what I keep on thinking about, and this is, where I stand as a fashion consumer, and also I teach fashion in university, but the business side of fashion, it all starts with the demand. What people what people want to buy, and it starts with trends. So we as brands are responsible. We create these trends, and then we are forcing customers. With marketing, we're forcing them to buy these products made out of polyester. 80% is made out of polyester. But if the trend is not on pleated skirts or whatever, then we won't be making as much. So it all starts with consumer demand. We are creating, as brands, this consumer demand because we want to make money. So how do we create a demand? How do we educate? It all starts with education. How do we educate the customers to buy less, to buy better? And I mean better, don't buy so much polyester, buy better materials, buy clothing that's made out of better materials. It all starts from us educating customers to make better choices. And then because if no one's buying these polyester shirts, then the brands won't be making them anymore. But people are still buying it. People are all over TikTok shop and buying £10 tracksuits. That's the problem. It's not that, how much polyester is in the world, and it's not about mixed materials that we can't recycle. That's not the problem. The problem is that we are forcing people to buy £10 tracksuits, £2 hair products. That's the problem. So, start from that. If you don't have this demand, then the brands are not going to be making it. So, I am an educator, so I'm educating the future of fashion buyers and merchandisers and fashion designers, and I'm educating them to start brands and start creating demand that it's actually more responsible.
Brilliant. Yes. So, which brings us all to the point as well. Because when you say we should be educating people. Like, I don't know how much louder I can shout, or how many more posts I can do on Instagram, or how many calls like this we can do and spend our time together, which is wonderful because it's educating myself as well as each other in this space, and bringing that community together. But no matter how much we're trying to educate people, the brands, the fast fashion brands, the giant brands with the massive budgets are drowning our voices out, right? So what are the messages really? What I would really like people to understand, and Laura, you kind of mentioned this at the beginning of the call, is, all brands are talking about materials, and we've just had a fascinating 20-minute chat about materials, right? Like, and we barely scratched the surface. What about the people in the supply chain as well? Because if you don't, Aishwarya, like you said, people don't care about the planet. When you tell them they're impacting their own bodies, they start to care a little bit more, which is good that we can now start to make the connection between what microplastics are doing to the environment and to ourselves. Like, we know that they're in our bloodstream now, for example. And then what about the people in the supply chain? Because constantly, what happened in Rana Plaza 12 years ago was always inevitable in some ways, really sadly. And Aishwarya, you were saying that when you were touring India, if you could tell us a little bit about that, like how much has changed when it comes to the building, for example?
So there are literally two versions of it in India that I toured. One is wherever there are stronger unions, there are systems, there is safety in place, there are mechanisms in place, and they're all followed. The moment there is no union, where there is I would say unorganized workers directly coming in, there's literally another Rana Plaza waiting to happen. I walked into, this was a handkerchief making factory. I was just visiting. I connected with the owner to, like, I know you work in the textile sector. Maybe I can visit you someday. I'm in the town. He's like, yeah, please do whenever you can. So I visited. The moment I entered, I got a strong caustic smell. I was like, is there an open caustic bath in here? There's like, yeah, they're just, they were scouring some fabrics there. I was like, but why is it not closed? But then I was the only one there, and there is a disparity of male to female in textile mills as well. So I decided not to shout too loud so that I get all my data and go out of that. So I was like, okay, like, can you walk me around? And the worker at the end, there were pipelines that were dripping, there were chemical signs that were passing that were not completely sealed, there were open caustic baths that you could smell. I was there for 10 minutes and I felt like going out for fresh air. What about the person pacing in day and out? What if there is one small electric spark?
Yeah.
That person in the end would not come out. And I have at least 10 more factories that I visited had similar situation. So my answer is, unfortunately, the makers are not going to stand up for the first line workers. The way is first line workers coming together and, as of now, asking for their right, because we can keep shouting ideally that, they have to be more ethical, they have to be better, but you have to fight for it. So I always give example of the unionized mills to the people or the first line workers in other areas that, you should follow this. Please get it together. Ask what you need. Then you'll get it.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's so hard when unions are fighting. Like, there's unions that are still fighting Nike, for example, to pay wages that they stopped paying during COVID-19. And I'm pretty sure that in Bangladesh, there are workers who protested, and now they're being prosecuted by the brands for protesting. So it is so important to unionize, absolutely, and to support each other on the ground. But also, people over here that are buying these clothes need to understand the exploitation that we are buying when we are buying these garments. and we wouldn't accept it for ourselves. We don't want it for our mothers or for our children. So why is it okay for someone halfway across the world to exist in these conditions?
I think most of us don't know where our clothes are made. And that is the idea with which fashion revolution started taking the clause, who made my clothes? That's how it started. For most people, especially unfortunately, in the Western world, and now it's coming to even countries like India and this metro cities and even in India, people are like, okay, somebody's sitting, sourcing fabric from somewhere, cutting it into patterns, making it into a shirt, and that's fine now. Do you realize where that material came to that fabric maker? Did the yarn come? Did the colored yarn come? Who dyed it? Where was it dyed? How much water did it use? Did it use a chemical that was not healthy? Was the worker Mary Clark's? Was he or she paid? No answers on that. We don't know it. So I think I'll take in a cue out of Silva's answer that once we know, we have to stand up and understand, what am I wearing? Who made it? Is it good for me? Probably then it will hint to the fact that, oh, this is not healthy for me. Probably I should buy a better thing. And then it will spur the next conversation that, oh, it was probably not healthy for the one making it either. And
Yeah.
just so much education and awareness, and most importantly, even regulations need to come in place.
I think sorry, Liz, it is all combined together because in my last corporate job, this was before pandemic. My colleague went to visit a factory just because she wanted to visit a factory, and found out that our garments were not actually made there. She was in Morocco, and she traveled with someone from the factory. One of the managers took her in the car, drove her to another factory, which was in a terrible state. And this is, a brand that was making a product. They were not cheap. It's not like we were selling £20 dresses. They were not cheap. And they were made in Morocco in the factory. They're in a really, really poor conditions. And she kicked up the fuss and the whole thing kicked off. But if she wasn't there, we would never have known. So there's, when you said at the beginning, Lizzie, when in introduction, that 99% of companies will not tell the information, will not say the information whether their workers are paid a living wage because they don't know. They don't know. That's the problem, and it is about regulation and legislation. But most of us do not know, and I think the bigger the company gets, the bigger the problems get in terms of transparency, because it's all about money, and everyone wants to make money. And then you're doing subcontractors and another subcontractor, and he keeps getting subcontracted. So at the end, you have no idea where anything is coming from. And so, yes, we need to educate our customers, but we also need to educate ourselves as brand owners, as retailers, that we really need to visit all the time. We need to be our own audit our own, not our own factories, but all our subcontractors, and do like spot checks, because there is so much like BS. I don't want to use the word, but there's so much out there, and that unless you go and see what's actually happening, you have no idea. You can have every certificate under the sun, but what does it actually mean? It's a piece of paper. That's it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I have a lot of opinions on this, but I am not here to share my opinions today. I'm here to ask the experts. So Laura, I'm sure that you have a lot of opinions on this as well. And you can tell us about your experiences with Bulgarian factories and the supply chain there.
I when we started talking about this webinar, and because I'm usually the one person in the room shouting about people when talking about this, and I usually I guess I get quite clashed with pretty much everyone, because I really try to get back the conversation in the human side of things, simply because as much as I don't want to continue repeat myself all the time, we make clothes because we need them. It's a very human thing. It's that simple. So I'm not entire. As far as like I find Aishwarya's specialty fascinating. I am someone that my education is in business and in advertising, so I have nothing to do with science. But at the same time, I'm a very curious person, so I love reading about textiles and stuff. But still, like, I just feel like we completely lost the plot when it comes to people, and we just jumped on, talking about everything but people. And as someone that is born and raised in a small South European country that is a significant hub for garment making in a very particular thing, because we in Bulgaria we do a lot of tailored garments. It's it's always been famous for tailored garments, especially after the Second World War when they took out the uniforms for the Nazis. As uncomfortable this fact is, it's a fact, right? So Bulgaria, Romania, like pretty much all the Eastern European countries are very much specializing in tailoring. So when you grow up close to this, these people, this whole thing, you it's very easy for you to see how things work, and I would say that now is not as common simply because the standards have raised, but Eastern Europe has always been, the sweatshop of Europe, really. And a lot of the things that were you will see with labels made in Italy are in fact made in places like Bulgaria, and then labels are attached in Italy or finished the garments, and there was not a lot of regulations anyway. Things have changed a little bit, and I don't want to, degrade a lot of the work that happened, but effectively what happened is, Europe has raised the standard, and Eastern European is part of Europe. So a lot of the countries have to raise the standard. I'm talking about pure living standards. So a lot of the factories cannot exist unless they are paid enough to exist. And basically, what happened in the past 10 to 15 years, there has been a shift. So a lot of the fast fashion branch, which were making things in Bulgaria because it was still a possible thing to do, now have went to Asia because it's not possible. Factories cannot keep up with the low prices and all of that. So I do have a lot of opinions, but at the same time, I realize that there is a huge line between a factory in Bulgaria or Romania or Macedonia and a factory in Bangladesh, because though there are still very dodgy practices and murky waters over there, and it's quite different. And I've seen it with my own eyes from factories working millions of tops for Topshop and H&M and fast fashion brands, and being completely tanked for various reasons, like they would place an order, then come back in 3 months and say, oh no, that is fault, so you have to do it again, and effectively tanking another factory. This is not as common anymore in Europe. But as as I'm saying this, you should also have in mind that the workforce in Europe has shrinked massively for the past 10 years. So if we had, let's say, 100 out of 100% full circle, it's probably now about 60. People are not, and this is, I'm sorry for the long introduction, but I think this is the point, and probably will link to what Silva said earlier. It's education, but it's also inspiration and sort of aspirational in a way. Yeah. What we need to do is somehow educate or inspire people, I would say, I guess, to see the value of this kind of work, because this whole narrative, which is helpful for the bottom line of companies, essentially exploiting people, is very much by design created to put these people into the very low level of social acceptance, or I mean anything you can think of. A garment tech is now nothing. It doesn't mean anything to a Western consumer. They can't really imagine, like a very common Western person. I'm not I'm not suggesting any particular person, an IP lawyer, let's put it that way, right? She has no idea what the garment technologies means. And usually a garment technologist is someone that's being trained equally long and hard as an IP lawyer. So, but for some reason, she's paid one third of that. And this is a narrative that has been made by design for so many years and decades, that now people that are making garments are essentially perceived as people who can attach this one zipper and do this operation, which takes them a minute, somewhere in India. It even think about it, even the image, which drives me personally insane. Close your eyes for a second, think about a garment worker, and let me know what comes to your mind. Is it this woman, which a young modern woman who goes in trouble? Because this is my garment technologies. She travels. She has a kid. She's a single mom. She's very modern. She loves Metallica and stuff like that. She's a very, very modern person. She wants to live a very good life.
And she's highly skilled and she takes pride in her work, right?
Yeah. And she's paid quite well, thanks God, because we exist. But if you think about it, if you close your eyes, this is not the image that comes to mind. The image that comes to mind is a poor and somehow a person who you definitely don't want to be. You don't want. It's not an inspirational thing to do, in a very simple terms. So I feel like a lot of the things that we need to do are very much connected to this. Going back to, this is a highly skilled work. If you go and watch a documentary film about anything in the golden age of fashion, 50s, 60s, 40s, pretty much, you will see this French ladies with the white aprons circling around Christian Dior or someone else. This was the image of a garment maker. And this somehow, for a couple of decades, has shifted completely to this poor, abused woman who someone needs to save. And I'm being emotional because it drives me nuts, because I know so many people who work in this and they take pride, not just take pride, it takes 10 years effectively for them to be able to call themselves professionals. And it's just one of the things that I feel needs to change, and it can change quite easily if I feel. Then this is probably the one thing I always say. If we go back to, think about how do we connect with clothes? What does that mean to us? Because it's something that we have on us every single day, 24/7, pretty much. We even sleep with clothes, but for some reason, the clothes have now become this something that we don't even think about how we connect with. We are even more conscious about the food that we consume, but we are not completely unconscious about the clothes that we consume. And it all connects to people again. How do we connect to that particular thing? So I feel with humans in everything, this is where we should start. And like Silva said, stop with the BS, stop talking about all the organic cotton stuff, because organic cotton is important, but it's really not the point. We have so much more core issues to fix before we go to that. And I guess probably we can talk about all the things simultaneously because it's all a full circle. But this is a big part of it where we completely put it on the side.
So we
And
put the humans on the side.
yeah, of course. I mean, it's the one thing that no one really wants to talk about. Think about how many times you go on their website and see their garment technologist talking to you.
Can you tell? Really, like, everything you're saying is, I'm nodding, and it's actually really sad that before, 20, 30 years ago, or even more, this was being a seamstress, a garment tech, was a career, was a very, very reputable career. Now we're hiding it because no one wants to do it. But I think it goes from that, but then it's also about clothes not being anything anymore. It's so disposable, and there is no pride. And I think if you actually make something that has a story, and you know who made it, you know that person's name, you know where the fabric comes from, and why is it the way it is, then you feel like you're wearing a story, you're wearing a history. When I watch old movies, and a few centuries ago, you had to wait to make a new dress. It was, you made a new dress for an occasion, and you waited and waited and waited until the dress is made, and then you wore it, and you wore it, and again and again and again, and every time you wear it, you feel really proud. You're wearing a piece of a story, a piece of history. And I think that's what fashion needs to come back to. We need to go completely. We've done completely opposite to it. And I think 10, 15 years ago, we started talking about this fashion revolution and trying to change the fashion. And then we got flipping TikTok shop. And then we got it blows my mind. And it blows my mind that people call themselves sustainable influencers and then they are influencing £10 tracksuits. And it's sorry, I keep on going on about this £10 tracksuits, but I keep on seeing it. And my kids, I've got young kids that are kind of teenagers now, and they're on TikTok and they're like, Mummy, can you buy me this? And I'm like, no way on this planet. And I think it's like, let's be the brands. I know there's no regulation, but it's transparency. I want to know that a lady that Laura employs, that listens to Metallica, every single woman, I want to know her name, and I want to say on my product pages, I don't know, Linda has made this garment and it took her 5 hours to make it, and she's paid €15 an hour, and this is her wage for that garment. So you are buying this dress, and Linda has earned €60 out of it. And it literally break it down. So the consumer is completely aware, like, I'm paying €200 for this dress, and this is what I'm paying for. But now, an 18-year-old girl is buying things from TikTok and is paying €10 for it. She has no idea that actually what that €10, where does that €10 goes, and who is getting paid from that €10. And I think it's that education, but transparency. It doesn't have to be big education. Is that every single product page on H&M or Zara, blah, 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 needs to have costings. I'm selling it for €55. This is what it's made out of. And there is no shame to say, this is my profit margin because I need to pay my staff in Zara, I need to pay the marketeers, need to pay people that work in the shop, blah, blah, blah. There's no shame in costings, but put it there so people are aware.
There is shame. Do you know what? There is shame in costings though, right? Because fast fashion brands typically have huge profit margins because of the bulk of clothes that they're buying. But with a small it's a smaller brand, and I work with a lot of small sustainable fashion brands, and every single one of them is scared to break down the garment in that way, because people then think, oh, you're making X amount on one item of clothing, without realizing that you're probably selling tens of that clothing, or maybe a couple of hundred rather than tens of thousands, right?
Exactly. But we had to give consumers a little bit more benefit of the doubt, because I don't think people are not aware that Zara is selling 10,000 pieces of something, and the small brand that has got one shop in your local high street is selling 10 units. People know that. But if you say that, in Zara, if it's £55 dress, and then it says actually only £5 or £7 out of that actually goes to the garment worker, then maybe, I'm kind of thinking maybe people have some conscience. They will go, maybe I won't buy that, because I wouldn't want to do that for £7.
But you know what? People won't. Well, maybe, yes.
Maybe.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
Also, maybe someone might justify it by saying, oh, but that's a lot of money where they're from, or where they're making this garment.
I have two stories. I have two stories. Actually, three. Very small. I'll keep it very brief. One is, I remember 10, 15 years ago when I was a kid, when my parents used to buy clothes for us. I remember all of those clothes because we used to buy like 4 clothes a year. One on my birthday, one on my sister's birthday, one on Diwali, and one in summer. I remember all of those clothes. I don't remember the ones in my closet which I probably bought in my college years. Like, I just need one more extra. Until, I peaked, I was like, oh, I don't need this. So that's part one. When clothes meant something, they came either with a reference, occasion, memory. And I remember we used to spend more than, what I spend now, even now in clothes. And so many of them have lasted. Like, if I repair slightly, I still fit in so many of them because they were quality things bought once in a while with an extra investment that, oh, I'm only buying 4 or 5 times a year. Let me buy something good. I remember those, and they are good quality. My second story is the artisans we work with very, very regularly. They're spread all across India. We do not try to separate them from their workplace. The best part I feel is they all work from home because they have their looms and settings, everything there, and they take a break whenever they want because I've met all of them personally. And this story is just to make everybody feel a little better. So many of these weavers, they sing songs when they're weaving, and I just feel so happy whenever I visit them. They're just singing nicely in their local language. I don't understand half of the things, but then they're weaving, and then you see the fabric, and it's like, then they sometimes call me, why don't you sit here, try to weave with me? So yes, it's this change is a very small part of thing, but I feel it's coming steadily with people like us, not just talking about it, educating about it, being open about it in rooms wherever we go, but also, just adopting it ourselves. Sometimes we lead by example as well. And, that brings me to my last part where Silva mentioned about breakdown. I am a small brand and I really, really want to break down all my prices. And while we are working on the blockchain and QR code version of things, once we have enough funding, but other than that, what to Lizzie's point, we once listed the first version of our website had these pricing listed. We got so many nasty comments on our socials and etc. Like, how are you selling this for this amount? And it's like, do you see the material? The base material is expensive. I have to take care of it. I have to get it made. I have not even put the price of knee dyeing plant fibers by myself. I'm not paying myself. But I'm still like, if I have a dyer in place who would do plant recipes that I have made, I will have to pay them a salary. That is not accounted right now. So I had given that little margin there that I will need to get a dyer in place, probably research a little bit more gamut in the plant colors that I formulated. And then we had a small collaboration video done with the Sustainable Communicator channel. They only connect stories of small businesses that are trying to make a difference. Again, the amount of comments, I even broke down to a few people that, these are slow fashion. You probably don't see these designs more than 50, 60 pieces because the artisan could only make fabric worth that. And the next batch will have so much variation that I wouldn't want to go into the comparison. So this is a limited edition piece. You're probably the 50 people in the world who will wear this. Doesn't that feel happy? And there's just so much story. Every piece has many Indian arsenics. No. I was so tired. We took that section out, and now we have a simple line that every artisan is at least paid 50 to 20% more than conventional pricing because we feel that is what the piece is worth. And with growing changes, we will update this number and put it out here. So now my go-to option is maybe once every 2 years or something, we'll put an annual report out there to be transparent about these practices. But putting it every day out there, we were managing the socials as well. So we were getting overwhelmed to, not manage that. So that's my reality as of now.
Yeah.
And that foxing thing, it's a here really, really exciting that people would actually do that.
And the things as negative people shout a little louder. The ones who were liking was liking and going away. The negative and shouts very loud. And I don't like that.
It's true. We're actually 3 minutes over. So, Laura, let's make your point and then we'll have a wrap up point each because I feel that we've covered a lot today. And obviously, not even half the questions that I've got here. We'll have to do this again.
It's a very, very short point, and I feel like because I've come to this through my experience. I never justify prices ever again. We used to do that. We used to break down perk. We don't do that anymore. If someone asks, I'm totally happy to say whatever goes in there, but we don't justify it because I feel one of the issues we have in sustainability as entrepreneurs and people who are is we are not inspirational enough. And thanks God, I can't say this for ourselves because I really don't. I feel like we certainly need a new PR agenda, PR marketing agenda. We need to stop justifying, oh, you know what, it costs you 50 because of that. No, it costs you 50 because I decided it costs you 50. I want to pay. I mean, if you have the questions, I will tell you why. But this is not my main point, because if you're happy to pay £1,000 for Louis Vuitton, which is nothing, more expensive or important or exciting about, what I'm trying to say is that we made the point about sustainable fashion by justifying why are we so expensive? Because people have been completely brainwashed that clothes don't cost money. Clothes do cost money. They're not a disposable good. They are a durable good by definition. And we need to go back to selling them. And I really mean selling them. This idea that responsible fashion, because I prefer that word as well. I hate sustainability as a term as well. But responsible fashion is really making clothes better within the full circle. It's not just the environment. People are a part of the environment. We are not some separate species. So I feel like the point of all of the talks that we have is that we need to also, because we are constantly like, fast fashion is bad, fast fashion, blah, 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 but we are not great as well. We have resorted to messaging which is guilt imposing, and I feel like we have to reframe and just kind of try and be a little bit more inspirational. That's it.
Right. Okay. So how do we inspire? Silva, I'm going to come to you first and off. So we've covered so much ground today. And we've had some lovely comments in the chat. So thank you everyone who's here and listening. But what can people actually do about it? How do we change this story? Silva, if there's one takeaway that you want people who are listening to this today to understand, so when they're next on TikTok looking at a £10 tracksuit, or when they're next considering their purchase, like what do you want them to stop and reflect about, or to understand?
I think it's just ask yourself questions. If you're actually paying something, a very cheap item, ask yourself a question. How long do you think that this took to make? And how long do you think, or how much someone should be paid to make this garment? You don't have to be an expert in the industry to know how long it takes to put a shirt together. It's not going to take 5 minutes. It's going to take a little bit of time. And so just to ask yourself a question, and don't be so blinded by influencers and by marketing to, I need to have this latest thing that everyone on social media is wearing. Don't be in the individual and make your own choices. I think that's what it is. Don't be one of the masses. Just be individual and make your own choice.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Aishwarya?
This is something very similar to what Silva said, but this is one line I say at every panel I am on. If your Starbucks and your shirt is costing the same, think who wasn't paid and how bad materials were used to make it. Because you're paying probably £10 or £15 for a good coffee, and you're paying the same for a piece of clothing. Who made it? Probably the polyester per kg is also not that cheap. And how bad material was used to be put next to your skin. So that's one thing I tell every single time.
Yeah, brilliant. Maybe £10-15 for 2 coffees with a tip, but yeah, if you're in a very nice place.
Yeah.
Lora.
Is the question, because I was listening to Silva and watching, her. She's very excited. So the question: how do we inspire people? What do we inspire?
What is a takeaway that you would like the people who are listening to this chat to take away with them?
I mean, I guess my takeaway is always the same. Like, go back to how you connect to clothes. Just connect on a human level. It's that simple, really. And it's very much what they said as well. Like, whether you're gonna ask all the questions about the prices and all these things, it's just human clothes are made by humans for humans. There is someone on the other side of this dress or top, which you basically wear every day or whatever. And if someone is simply the same person as you, they want the same things. They want, to go for a vacation. They want to have a good life. That's it. It's very simple. And if you are able to connect to that, the questions will come naturally, because the moment you're like, okay, but where is this made? How is this made? Who made it? And this person is, maybe she's called Barbara or whatever. Who is she? Like, and it all falls together because it's a human nature. So I think very, very simple. It's really simple. We just made it very complicated.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point to end on. And something that I would just like to add is it's just not only £10 tracksuits. Like, this is rife in the luxury industry as well. So don't think that just because you're paying for a name, you're paying for quality. You're not. People are still very much exploited in the luxury fashion chains, and that is coming to light at the moment now. And so that brings me also to, like, how do you know the difference? And I think, we all need to be looking at people's websites to see what you're saying. We need to be asking questions of you. So I know that all of you are open to any customer emailing you a question about materials or about people, about anything. Like, in fact, you want it. And then I think also, not to blow my own trumpet, but Live Frankly and websites like us do so much work to try and find people like you guys to make it easier for you to know the difference between people who are walking the walk and those who are just talking the talk and greenwashing. And so, you don't always, the brand that can't always afford, especially if they're small, to be accredited, but there will be a network of people working in sustainability, and you will see the same brand names pop up who have integrity. And I think, like, try and get part of that network, and you will, and it will become easier. And we know as well, I think, don't we? We all know where the exploitation is. So just stop lying to yourself. Just be honest. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. We've gone 10 minutes over. I'm so sorry. We did have technical issues, and we've covered so much today. It's been brilliant. We will be making a recording of this and sharing out some snippets. So look out for those. And thank you so much to the panelists for their time and your expertise and your dedication and your just being so inspirational. It's been brilliant talking with you.
Thank you so much, Lizzie.
Thank you so much.
Panel, and I really enjoyed talking to Lora and Silva. And as a small brand, I really want to add how much of a difference directories and places like Live Frankly make, because most of the big editions are not ready to take us, but that doesn't mean we don't have credibility from third-party sources. And I'm so glad Live Frankly comes in at that point. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
But I think also, I just want to say that it's really, I've learned so much today, and I think every day is a learning day, and we should never stop learning. Things are changing, and we should never stop talking to each other and learning from each other, and and not actually thinking, oh, I haven't done enough. Just be open to learning new things and trying, because we're never going to be perfect. It's if we're trying, that's perfect. Just trying is perfect enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. What inspirational way to end. Brilliant. Thank you all.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.